Good evening, Redskin fans. Welcome into episode 5 of the Skinscast Show, a show where I just sit and talk about the Redskins. That's what I do. That's what I like. This show's gonna be a little bit different. Not gonna do a Dallas. Not really gonna do much of a preview game. We know what's at stake here. We're a beat up team, but we got to find a way to win to stay alive in the playoffs. Not gonna do a recap show of the Giant game. It was a gutty win. Wasn't pretty, but at the end of the day, they got it done. What I do want to talk about is pretty much based on a report that came out this weekend actually it was last week before the Redskins game on Thursday night, Thanksgiving. Ian Rappaport said that he had been told by a Redskin official that the Redskins did not view the transition tag as an option, and so over the next 5 games, they would be evaluating Kirk Cousins to see whether he was worth signing to the franchise tag or a long-term deal. Now, I will freely admit that the rap sheet has been wrong a lot when it comes to the Redskins. This is the guy that broke the story that the Redskins were going to trade Kirk Cousins to the Dallas Cowboys for Tony Romo, and somehow we were going to get picks. It was just going to be this big 3-way deal, and it never even came close to happening. So, and there's been other instances where it seems like whoever his source is sort of floats him wrong information. So I'm going to stipulate that this could be an erroneous report by a very bad source here. I am not attacking Rappaport's honor or professional ability. These guys report what they are told. I just don't know what kind of source he's got, and sometimes what he has reported in the past has not even come close to happening. So, as I begin this rant, I want to get that out of the way here because this report could be completely bogus. But I do want to take the time to address it because I think it's something that as we close in on the end of the season is going to become a bigger story. And that is, what are the Redskins going to do with Kirk Cousins? How are they going to proceed? Now, it would be the most Redskin thing ever if somehow Allen and company did say to Rappaport that we're going to use these 5 games to see whether he's worth it or not. Well, this is the whole crux of what this show is going to be about. You're telling me that after watching Kirk Cousins this season go through what we've gone through with the injuries and what we don't have on this offense, somehow these final 5 games are going to make your mind up for you? Yeah, that would be the most Bryce Allen thing ever. It really would. The fact, I think what makes me mad is I could totally see this being true, okay? I'll go ahead and stipulate that too. Would not shock me if this did not come out of Bruce Allen's mouth. So with that, we're going to dive right into some statistical analysis, okay? When Kirk Cousins ended the 2015 season, which, by the way, was fantastic, he set the record for most passing yards in a single season. He led the team to the division championship. We lost to the Packers in the first round. But coming out of that season, I felt like there were 3 big questions going forward that most of us Redskin fans had. And it didn't really relate to whether or not he was worth the money or what we're going to do with him. It was just how much better can he get? And the first area that I felt like was how is he going to handle himself against the blitz? Because the big problem he had in 2015 was when pressure was applied, when you got guys in his face, he seemed to struggle. I felt like he improved last year, but I want to show you where he's at this year, folks. Right now, according to NFL Matchup, Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the league right now, rating-wise, against the blitz. His quarterback rating is 119.4. That is smoking, guys. And it's even more incredible when you realize how much pressure, because of the offensive line shuffles we've had, how he's had to deal with that. I mean, what else can the guy do? I mean, you're sitting there batting around a 119.4. He's better than Case Keenum, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Russell Wilson. Surprisingly, Andy Dalton's in that in that list. Even more surprisingly, Mitchell Trubisky is on that list with a 98.1. Ben Roethlisberger has a 96.3. Carson Wentz has a 98.1. But wait a minute, folks. Carson Wentz is great at everything. Why can't we have Carson Wentz? Why can't we have what other teams have? We've got Kirk Cousins, folks. That's why we don't need another quarterback. We don't need to be hunting for another quarterback. So that's the first round. That was the first question. I can remember, again, clearly, after 2015 saying, you know what? He's got to get better against the blitz. Check. Okay? Second thing coming out of that season, I felt like Kirk Cousins needed to create more. Could he be the kind of quarterback that when a play breaks down, could he come off his initial reads and make something happen? Well, I think we took baby steps last year, but there was definitely a hump that he needed to get over. Well, guess what, folks? He's gotten over the hump this year. On more than one occasion, that guy has laid it on the line with his legs and his body to pick up a first down. He essentially drove us down the field on 2 huge runs against Kansas City, a game that we should have won. But last week, the Giant game was a perfect example, maybe his best touchdown pass of the 3 years he's been here, of the 3 years since he's been a starter. The pass to Jamison Crowder. I'm not going to sit there and say it was Aaron Rodgers-esque, because nobody does that kind of thing better than Aaron Rodgers. But Kirk Cousins did a magnificent job of stepping out of pressure, running, keeping his eyes up, being in a position to force the defense to respect run, and then at the last minute, finding Crowder, open in the end zone, boom, touchdown. To me, that's a play that screams, I've improved. I'm better. Let's check another box, folks. This is the second answer to my big questions coming out of 2015. The next question, the big thing coming out of 2015, another big issue was, Kirk Cousins is a system quarterback, which that means, he's good in one system doing one thing. Well, I thought last year he advanced past that a little bit. But the big question coming out of 16, so many people said, he's completely dependent on the people around him. He's completely dependent. You take away the players he's got, you take away Jordan Reed, you take away Deshaun Jackson, you take away Pierre Garçon, this guy's going nowhere. Guess what, folks? False. Have we checked out lately what we don't have on the field? Okay, we don't have Deshaun. We don't have Pierre. Jordan Reed is fixing to miss his 5th game of the season. Okay? So this whole narrative about whether or not Kirk Cousins can, quote-unquote, make people better, or that he's completely dependent on having great players around him to be successful, that's another falsehood. He's making this work with, number one, Josh Dotson, who's essentially a rookie. Receiver is maybe the second hardest offensive position to play, in my opinion, after quarterback. And especially in a technical offense like this, okay? This is not a simple, 4-route concept offense. It's not. Multiple concepts, multiple formations. It's a lot to grasp and it's a lot to learn, and Josh Dotson essentially missed his entire rookie year. We're making that work. Terrell Pryor was signed to be our big number 1 receiver and didn't even come close to panning out. Couldn't hold on to the football. Hurts his ankle, he's on IR. So what you replace him with is Ryan Grant, the guy that we've all panned. Somehow, he's been effective. I'm not going to say he's great. I'm not going to try to tell you that Ryan Grant is a budding superstar. I don't think he is. But what Kirk Cousins and Ryan Grant have done is found a way to be productive, found a way to get into football at different times. We have had to deal with Jamison Crowder early in the season being banged up with a hamstring injury. He is just now rounding into form and playing great football, I might add. But still, for the first part of the season, we struggled because you could tell he was not healthy. He was not the same guy that we're seeing right now. Jordan Reed, I said it again, Jordan Reed's been out the last 5 games. Before that, he missed, a game or so with a chest injury. He missed most of training camp with a toe injury. What happens? Well, let's go find 33-year-old Vernon Davis and let's turn him into a Pro Bowler this year. Okay, he's averaging about almost 17 yards a catch. You have to have a quarterback to throw that stuff, folks. It doesn't just happen. Vernon Davis isn't taking 5-yard passes and running the final 12. Okay, he's catching the big stuff, but he's also catching dimes, thrown by Kirk Cousins. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, he just did not think Vernon Davis would carry the tight end group like he has. I think that's great. We've got contributions from Mo Harris, that big one-handed touchdown against Minnesota. Obviously, not as big a part of the offense, I think, as most of us thought he might be. But still, here and there, you find a way to get in the football. Early in the season, we were making it work with Chris Thompson, wheel routes, screens, over-the-middle type checkdowns. Guess what? Chris Thompson's out. Going to miss the rest of the season. Kirk Cousins last week still found a way, especially in the second half, to move the football. Offensive line has been a roller coaster. It's been a revolving door. He's taken more hits. He's taken more sacks than he has at any point since he's been named the starter in 2015. And yet, right now, again, let me throw some more stats at you. He is currently the 4th-ranked passer, according to Pro Football Focus, which, again, I will completely allow that some of the stuff that they put up there makes sense. Some of it doesn't. But when you talk about passes that travel in the air over 20 yards, right now Kirk Cousins has a 120.2 in his deep passer rating. It's another thing people said Kirk Cousins couldn't do. He was a check down Charlie. No, he's not. He's a big play guy. Kirk Cousins, after I think this was after the Minnesota game, this was his 8th 300-yard game with 3 touchdowns and no picks since the start of the 2015 season. That is tied with Tom Brady for the most games inside of that time frame. The only other players who have done this 5 or more times since 2015 are Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Ben Roethlisberger. Okay? Pretty sure 4 of those 5 quarterbacks are shoo-ins for the Hall of Fame. Another one, if he continues, that being Russell Wilson, will probably make it there one day. And if Kirk continues doing what he's doing, he's going to have a shot at it. But my point is, we're talking about a guy that stands up with a lot of the big boys, okay? He is just one of 7 quarterbacks who has started each of his team's last 42 games. I'm not going to go into the list there. Folks, he's durable. We're not having to try to figure out, okay, at least 2 games a year, we're going to need our backup. Some teams have to think like that. For a few years, the Pittsburgh Steelers were having to deal with that. You knew at some point Ben was going to go down with a nagging type of injury, and they were going to have Landry Jones or Byron Leftwich or Charlie Batch. I mean, you could just count on it. That's not a knock on Ben, but that is saying it's nice to be able to think that, you know what, I can count on my quarterback being there. And this year, he's taken a beating, and he still gets up. Now, this is the 4th big question that people come at you with if you voice your support for Kirk Cousins. They say, well, he's not good in fourth-quarter games. He's not good in game-winning situations. Well, let me throw this at you, okay? Kirk Cousins now leads the entire NFL in game-winning drives this season, and his 12 game-winning drives since he took over as a starter in 2015 are tied for 2nd in the NFL. He's tied with Derek Carr, who, by the way, just signed a big deal as a franchise quarterback with the Raiders. The only other player with more such drives in the last 3 years is Matt Stafford. That's his calling card or comebacks. He's got 14. Kirk Cousins has 2 fewer, okay? 2. So don't come at me, folks, that this guy somehow doesn't get it done in the fourth quarter, has to have perfect situations all the time to succeed. None of that works. This year has put that to bed. I think this is the last one I'll bore you with. Yeah, it is. Just so I can drive this home, Cousins is on pace to become just the 8th player ever to throw for 25 touchdowns, at least 4,100 yards, and throw 15 or fewer interceptions in 3 straight years. The rest of that list is as follows: Dan Marino, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, Phillip Rivers did it twice, Peyton Manning did it twice, and Tom Brady's done it. What else do we need, guys? Okay, and I understand. There are some of you, and again, I've said before, I don't try to change people's opinions, okay? I give you my opinion, but I'm not going to sit here and berate you for your opinion. Whether you like Kirk Cousins or you don't like Kirk Cousins, that's completely your business. But what you can't do is ignore the facts. And numbers are part of the factual narrative that surrounds Kirk Cousins. Everything points to hey, I'm a franchise quarterback. Now, I may have been drafted in the 4th round. I may have had a winding road to get here. Bruce Allen, I might not even have been your guy. You may try to find reasons to get rid of me, but there's no reason to get rid of me because I keep producing. We're 5-6 largely because Kirk Cousins has found a way to operate amid the chaos that has been this season injury-wise. Okay? Our running game has been in shambles until the last 2 games. Samaje Perine has definitely stopped the bleeding, but before that, we were descending into bottom third of the league in rushing. I mean, it's been like 6 weeks in a row we didn't even get 100 yards, and yet we still found ways to be viable in football games. That's because we've got a good quarterback. I guess what I would recommend to you now, as now the stats part of the show is done, what I would recommend is to go on SI.com and look at the article. I'm going to try to find it really quick so I can source it correctly. You need to go to SI.com and find the article by Greg Bishop. It's called Kirk Cousins is as nerdy as he seems, which makes him an ideal franchise quarterback. There it is. I'm not lying to you. It's here on my phone. Anyway, it talks about Kirk Cousins' commitment to being the best guy he can be, and it's sleep studies, saliva studies, neurogenics, all this stuff that I have absolutely no idea. But we have a quarterback that cares, folks, okay? He's not running around chasing skirts in the middle of the night in D.C., the D.C. club scene. He's not partying on a ship, getting drunk. He's at home in a hyperbaric chamber helping raise his newborn infant. And meantime, he's making sure he gets enough rest, that he eats correctly, that he surrounds himself with people that have purpose in life, and all of this is being done because he wants to get better. This is not scream of a person that feels like he's arrived and he's as good as he's going to get. He's trying to get better. And right now, if you were to graph Kirk Cousins, the line is doing this steadily, okay? And I hope that, again, I hope the report was not true. I hope there was nothing to it. I'm disappointed that nobody from the Redskins side came out and said none of that happened. We don't know who said this, okay? I wish they had come out and said that. But I know some Redskin fans were a little bit ruffled because they said that there were a couple of quotes in this story by Kirk Cousins' dad saying that, well, the Redskins could have made him an offer to be the highest paid quarterback and he probably wouldn't have signed that one either. That's just because I think Kirk Cousins thinks right now, he's just thinking differently in terms of contract. I think Kirk Cousins is comfortable on one-year deals. I don't think he's necessarily itching for a long-term deal unless it makes sense. The key here, I don't think, is that Kirk Cousins does not want to be with this football team. I think it would suit him to end his career here. I think he'd be more than happy to do that. But I'll tell you this, it's not something that he's not going to exert 90%, and the Redskins are going to be able to exert 10% to make this happen. The Redskins are going to have to show Kirk Cousins, you know what? We believe in you. We believe that you're our leader, and we believe that you're our franchise quarterback. And I think if Bruce Allen ever quit for 1 minute trying to win in his mind this negotiation, we would not be in the shape we. This deal would get done. It would get done quickly. But instead, Bruce Allen sits in his office and he says, okay, how can I look like the genius in the room? Kirk's got all this leverage. I've got to try to figure out how to win here. And the way I'm going to win is to try to throw stuff out there saying, well, you've got a little more to prove. Well, we're going to make you a contract offer that makes no sense, but we'll be able to say you were going to be the highest paid player in the league. And even though when you break down the numbers, it wasn't going to be like that at all. But that's Bruce Allen's mentality, and that's what terrifies me. It terrifies me to think this man is running this negotiation. I'm going to close with this. There are opportunities that you have as a team and as a franchise that only come around just once. They only happen to you one time, and I'll give you an example of that, okay? We're going to take it all the way back to 1981 when the Redskins hired Joe Gibbs, okay? I was in third grade, so I didn't get all the nuances of football back then. But in reading Joe Gibbs's 2 books, if you watched A Football Life, which I highly recommend, Too short, too rushed, didn't get enough information in there, but still very good about Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs had a couple of decisions to make when he became coach of the Redskins. The first one is everybody told him, look, you got to get John Riggins back in camp, okay? The second is you got to figure out what you're going to do at quarterback, because Joe Theismann, even for back in 1981, was getting up in years, and nobody could have blamed Gibbs if he had said, you know what, we're just going to make a change. I'm going to start fresh, bring a new system in, let's get a new quarterback in here. First thing he does is he goes out to Kansas to try to talk John Riggins into coming back. His first impression was John Riggins is an egomaniac. I'm going to sign him, and then I'm going to turn around and trade him. That was what's in his mind. John Riggins said, Joe, I'll come play, but I want a no-trade clause. At that point, Gibbs could have dug his heels in and said, you know what, I'm not putting up with this. John, you can stay out in Kansas for all I care. When you want to come back, I'll trade you and move on. But instead, he said, you know what, I'm going to trust this guy. We're going to get him in here. I'm going to figure out how to use him. You see what happened, okay? If Joe Gibbs had not made that decision to keep John Riggins, and then number two, use John Riggins the way he did, would we have had the success that we had? I don't think so. Second thing, with Joe Theismann. Joe Theismann, about midway through the year, went to Joe Gibbs and said, Joe, look, I don't know what you've been told about me. People say I'm not serious about football. I've got a restaurant. I've got commercials. I'll do whatever it takes to be your quarterback. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll shut all that other stuff down and prove to you that I want to be your quarterback. Gibbs could have dug his heels in that situation and said, Joe, I appreciate it, but we're going to go a different direction. Instead, he says, you know what? I'm gonna ride with Joe Theismann. All we did is win a Super Bowl, go to another one, win 3 division titles. But that's because the leader of a football team made good decisions, okay? And sometimes they were decisions that maybe were a little bit counterintuitive to what he thought going in. We're sort of at the situation like that with Kirk Cousins and Bruce Allen. Everything that is screaming in Bruce Allen's ear, look, you're going to lose this negotiation. Spin this thing to where you did everything you could, and let's get out of it and show how smart I am, and let's go with a young quarterback. Or Bruce Allen could say, you know what? I'm going to make the smart move here. I'm going to quit being an idiot. I'm going to quit fighting it, and I'm going to do something that makes sense for the franchise that I supposedly love. And what would make sense is sign Kirk Cousins, okay? Come into these negotiations, drop all this mess about, well, we need 5 more games. Are you serious? You need 5 more games after you've already seen what this guy can do over a 2.5-year period? What's 5 games going to show? I mean, the mentality there physically makes me sick almost. Again, Bruce Allen, show some leadership. Dan Snyder, look at Bruce Allen and say, look, get this deal done or you can hit the road. It's that simple. It is that simple, okay? I've ranted out. I didn't think it was possible, but I have. I'll close with this. We have a good quarterback, okay? We've got a great quarterback. Let's get him signed, and let's continue to build around. Let's continue to build our defense. We're not miles away defensively. We're not. I think we're another good draft from fielding a top 15 unit. I really believe that with this coaching staff. But a lot of that goes by the wayside if you make one dumb move at quarterback. That's it. Go Skins, beat Dallas.
You like that? You like that?